All right, Coach. Hey, thanks for joining me today on this Simple Coach to Coach interview and hopefully a recap of your really good 2022 season. Your first as a head coach, so really interested in that. I apologize in advance if you hear the dog barking or the lawnmower's going, but I got the lawn guys here, so no means personal. Okay, so I just have to ask because you're pretty unique in this way, and everyone I spoke to pretty much has had some years under their belt as a head coach. So I'm like really intrigued. Like, dude, how was it?
It was good. It was good. I mean, I can't complain. The guys that were here already came in and really bought into what we were trying to do. I think that's an important part of the process is getting those returning guys that obviously I didn't recruit to really trust in what we're doing and set a good example. So they did that well. We got enough wins to show improvement this year. I'm not going to say it was some crazy spectacular year, but 9 wins on the year is pretty good. Reaching a conference semifinal, all in all, pretty satisfied with it. I'm not going to say I'm super pumped about it because you can always want more, always want to be better, and we have to get better still in a lot of areas. But year one is in the books, so I can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about the season a little bit later. So, how long? I mean, you were hired in like December, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how long did it take for you to settle in and start being able to really focus in on the program, what you want to do, assessing the players, all of those things that you would need to do before you actually jump into a season?
I think it's a little bit tough. I think right away in January and February, we had enough contact points with the returning guys to develop relationships with them and start to understand them as people and as players. But with so many incoming guys, we brought in 19 new players to the fold, kind of doubled our roster in that circumstance, or that idea there. So getting into the fall was almost like starting over again from that standpoint. Did a lot of had a lot of conversations about culture and what we expect. And, every now and then I've told some of the guys I felt like we were playing whack-a-mole a little bit with just those little things that pop up that come with dealing with a program and so many young guys. But they responded really well. So, I want to cheat and say, I was able to focus on the program right away. But I think that once we got into the fall, it definitely was a learning experience for them as much as it was for me on how things were going to go. And so never lost sight of the program by any stretch, but I think any first-time head coach would tell you that all that additional paperwork and responsibility that comes with being the head guy is
Yeah.
is not a shock to the system, but takes a little bit longer to do the first time around, as does any task.
Yeah.
So I feel good about the focus we had on the team and the program, and the routines were pretty easy, and it's not anything that's drastically different from one institution to another. From you got to put together a practice plan, you got to have a decent scouting report, know what you're going into each game expecting. And I think our guys did a good job of responding to everything we tossed at them this year.
Did did you hear if what you were doing was dramatically different than what had been there in the past? Not in a positive or
Um,
a negative way. I just mean you were doing things
yeah.
differently.
Uh, I think I'm a little bit different. Yeah, just in my focus a little bit more so on that culture piece and keeping
Hmm.
guys invested. And part of the way I believe in doing that is probably a little bit more of a heavy rotation than what a lot of these returners were used to.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I just see that at a lot of top level institutions, guys that I know that are coaches that do the same sort of thing. And I don't know if that was so much a difference from the previous coach, versus instead of just the circumstances of the last year prior to me being here. They just had really low numbers on the roster, unfortunately,
Hmm.
due to circumstances outside of that coach's control. So
Yeah.
I think that was kind of retraining a lot of those guys that wanted to go 90 minutes every single game. That was probably the biggest difference for them in terms of what they could expect on a day-to-day basis going into the game.
So now, what do you think? Because you just mentioned it, just like your roster size. What do you think you'll be able to get up to, or what you would be aiming for an ideal roster
Yeah, I
size?
was gonna say I can get up as high as anybody needs me to. I mean, I guess that's something that's not necessarily what I want to do, right?
Right.
But no, I'm fortunate again. I'm in a place here at Transylvania where I'm not told, hey, you have to have 50, 60 guys on a roster or bring in 20 guys a year.
Hmm.
We'll have that roster pretty consistently around 33 to 35 players, I would say.
Right.
Um, we had 34 this year. Couple guys with some significant injuries that never really saw the field. So you figure somewhere around 32 active guys.
Hmm.
I think it's a good place to be for me.
Yeah. So, what did you learn about yourself as a first-time head coach?
That's a loaded question, man.
Oh,
That's
you
a
know
good one.
what? I'm not easy. I've become, I watch all the greats in interviewing style, Charlie Rose, and I don't know who else. I just think Charlie Rose. So,
Yeah. Um, I think on a personal standpoint, it was fun for me as the assistant coach to occasionally be that guy that brings in the crazy idea. We're going to try this or we're going to try that, and kind of let somebody else make that final decision. And so there were some moments here where it was entertaining and nerve wracking for myself to be the guy that makes that final decision. It's
mhm,
very very rewarding. It was a lot of fun, but I think the first couple times you're in those spots, it's like, man, we really about to do this. We changed systems a couple times going into big games and didn't necessarily have as much practice in those systems as I would have liked.
mhm,
Whether it's a basic substitution or something like that, even down to how you handle those one-on-one meetings and things like that. I think the biggest thing I learned was just to go ahead and trust what I believe in. The times that I may have faltered in my own self belief at times, or the times I should have
mhm,
gone, man, I really just should have gone for it there. Because when we did
mhm.
go for it, and my assistant and I kind of went with our guts, it worked out most of the time. So I think that's the biggest thing from a coaching perspective. And then on a personal front, I think it's one of those things that you never really know until you know. But I felt like I was ready. I felt like it was a good step for me.
Mhm.
Um, Again, spent 6 years in the same program with the same head coach, and had a lot of fun. And then venturing out on your own, you're never really quite sure. So I think
Yeah,
it's fun now to say, like, hey, I've got that first season under the belt. I feel good about it,
yeah.
and I know what to do moving forward. So
Well, expectations, right? You're never quite sure what your expectation is to be a head coach until you
right,
become a head coach, right? Like,
yeah.
because you're always outside looking in. So, because I keep asking these, what was your biggest challenge for the season as a new head coach?
Um, I think for me it was just the institutional patterns, not good or bad, just different.
Mm,
The different,
mm,
whether it was an adjustment in training schedule or a different process to just change when you want to train or where you're going. This conference that I'm in now, the Heartland, has a little bit of a different pattern to it than the OAC where I came from. So learning those sorts of things and figuring out kind of really what the right way or my opinion what the best way is to go through those different processes was the biggest adjustment. First time you go through them, everything, as anybody knows, the first time you go through something takes longer than it does the second time or the third time, and
yeah.
hopefully that time to completion continues to shorten throughout the more and more you do it. So I think that was my adjustment here, is just finding the new pattern, finding the new rhythm,
Mhm.
and how people here like to do things and what the expectations are.
This will be my last of the philosophical questions here.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I'm always curious. Like, what did you learn about the program that you might not have been aware of before you came in, right? Like,
Yeah.
was it the guys you were just totally surprised by the folks on your team?
I think I was you always hear about this rich tradition that Transylvania has, and it was really intriguing to me how connected and knowledgeable some of the guys on the team were to that history, and they wanted to be a part of it. You know, we had an alumni event here on campus where we were fortunate enough. We had former coach Charlie Spiegel was out. He was here for, I don't know, almost 20 years, I think, and really started this thing moving. We had a guy from the first ever rendition of men's soccer here at Transylvania, and the
Wow.
guys were knowledgeable of, you know, all of the records and the players that had come before them. So I was really pleasantly surprised by the connection between um, alumni and the current program. I think that that was really powerful. I
Mm-hmm.
would go to random places and I'd get questions. Oh, hey, I know this guy and he knows you. And I was up recruiting this past weekend and got another couple stories from another guy that was at that event. So really continuing to learn how connected the alumni are here for Transylvania. A lot of them still in Lexington. Um, and just the desire of guys here to continue that level of success. I know a lot of them were really broken up about, you know, their performance last year, and so it was personal to them to really correct this and move it forward. And as a coach, man, that's all you want is a guy that's willing to give everything to that cause to win a game. You know, we were able to beat center for the first time in about 5 years this year, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the emotions for these guys that have grown up, you know, within an hour radius of Danville and Lexington, and it just meant so much to them.
Mm-hmm.
So to see that emotion come out of them, there's one guy in particular, Tyler Dobbs, was a fifth year senior for us that just showed everything you could possibly want in grit out of a kid this year. So
Mm-hmm.
um, those individual desires were really cool for me to see this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, right? Like the last thing you want is guys who don't care about that sort of stuff, right?
Hmm.
That's the kiss of death, right? Like you because you can't get somebody to care, right? Like
Right.
so um yeah, it sounds like you stepped into a really great place and you
Hmm.
know with a great group of guys. Okay, so just shifting a little bit. You had four ties in this year. I'm sure you know where this is going. Do you have any thoughts on those overtime changes? Did you, or lack thereof, did you like it? Did you not like it? Would you have preferred to go into OT and settle it on the field, or?
Uh, I think there were a couple of those ties that if we had gone to overtime, I feel really good about our chances to get all 3 points. And I know our guys were really, you know, disappointed in that as an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. They felt like it was taken from them, that we were knocking on the door a few times there, that we felt like we could have gotten the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as a coach, it sounds strange, but it almost makes me accept the fact that, hey, we just got to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not here to, you know, propose any different changes or anything. I'll let people that are smarter than me hand down those rules. I think that, you know, last game of the regular season game of the year we tied, and part of
Mm-hmm.
me knew if we went an extra 20, we probably get one and get the win. But
Mm-hmm.
part of me thought, you know what, we're going into the postseason. I'm not too upset about having some extra rest on our legs.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see it both ways. I think that more so the guys were really frustrated a few times this
Yeah.
year. They went, "Yeah, coach, we give us 5 more minutes and we get that."
Yeah.
And so I feel for them. I do think we could have upped it, you know, that win column a couple more times. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, if you don't get the job done in 90, you don't get the job done.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a learning experience as we move forward. That you don't get those extra 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Do
So
you think? Do you think? Do you think either you or like any of the opponents that or other opponents that you played, like they played with this idea that they would be satisfied with a tie and sort of did things to, hey, at a minimum we're gonna tie. We're not gonna lose. We're just gonna tie, right? Like I'm not
yeah.
saying like purposely go for a tie, but if your thinking is, hey, I'm satisfied with 1 point versus three, to me, it does sort of mentally change your approach to how you're attacking and things like that.
Yeah, I think that deals more so in conference for us.
Mm-hmm.
There is one of our tiebreakers is that the tie, if you tie in the regular season for head to head, the
Mm-hmm.
tiebreaker goes to the away team. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so certainly, I'm sure there are teams that would use that to your advantage, as you would any rule in the rule book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know that I saw it at all in non-conference where we had, I think, three of our four ties. So,
Mm-hmm.
I know we went down to Georgia and played Barry to a 0-0 tie, and
Mm-hmm.
they were a good team, and that was just a battle back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't think anybody was truly trying to sit in the non-conference, and then
Right.
in conference, it's all about results. So different
Yeah.
programs are gonna, if they don't think they can match up with you going in high pressing, then why would they?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to look down on anybody's tactical decisions to sit and hold if that's how they get results. That's how they get
Yeah.
results. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, you still got to do the job, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, I didn't see any intentional, hey, we're only going for a tie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think when they sat in, they just sat in as a mark of respect to us that was how they have to play to get a result against us.
Mm-hmm. Do you? I mean, you come from the OAC, right? You were at Marietta as an assistant 6 years. I don't hold that against you. You're a player at Marietta. I still don't hold that against you. Kind of like you. You're a good guy.
I'm not sure I believe that 100%. I think there's a little bit.
Well, you should because I asked you a second time to interview, right?
Yeah.
If I ignore, I don't like. That's sort of my just general rule of thumb with anything. So if I
Okay.
ignored you, yeah. Um, no, but like what? Where would you say the Heartland Conference, the HCAC, falls in relation to the OAC competitively, soccer wise? I'm asking because I don't know. I think I watched a couple of halves of your during the season, and
Hmm.
just not sure that I got a good grasp of what the conference is like. Like because I watched the OAC just by
Yeah.
default a little bit more.
It's tough for me because I think that you've got some, obviously the OAC, I think to be blunt, the OAC top to bottom is a better conference.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't say that there aren't teams in the Heartland that can't go up and beat them.
Mm-hmm.
I know Hanover regularly plays some OAC schools, and when they went to the Sweet 16 last year, they beat schools
Mm-hmm.
in the OAC. You might have to fact check me on that one, but I know over the past 3-4 years, just seeing that name pop up in some victories against some big OAC schools, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's one of those things where you get to the top few teams in a conference and they're going to be good.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say top to bottom OAC is better, uh, but you also have a lot more schools on grass in the Heartland, which I think
Really? That's interesting.
changes the game. Yeah, I'm trying to think
Mm-hmm.
in the OAC. Um, Really, Heidelberg is the only one with any regularity that plays on a
Yeah.
grass field. Where in the Heartland, you've got several schools, pretty much half of them that are on grass fields.
Uh huh.
And I think that as you go through a conference and inevitably with a grass field in the Midwest, it doesn't always hold up the best towards the end of the season, so it changes the game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so again, I have all the respect in the world for the coaches here in the Heartland Conference. But I think that the spot that I sit in is a little bit unique where we're a program that I think should be in the top three of the Heartland
Mm-hmm.
every single year.
Right.
And it's hard to break into that for the rest of them. Whereas you look at the OAC, there's a lot more parity from top to bottom. I mean, John Carroll won the conference tournament now, what, 5, 6 years in a row, but Ohio Northern had an undefeated OAC season in the regular season, and they
Yeah.
went and just bowed out, I think, in the Sweet 16. So
Sweet
um,
16. Yeah.
I think
I was
you've
rooting
got,
for him.
yeah, you've got more top level teams in the OAC, teams that
Mm-hmm.
anybody can beat anybody on any given day, where I think the pecking order is a little bit more established here in the Heartland.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you get an automatic bid if you win the tournament?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's how Hanover. I mean, I don't know their record or anything, but right
Yeah.
because
So
they got the bid. No,
Rose Holman did this year.
Rose Holman. That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think you just by the nature, you see a lot more at-large bids come out of the OAC. I'm not
Hmm.
familiar with when the last time the Heartland would have gotten an at-large bid. I think that
Yeah.
there are teams that towards the bottom, the strength of schedule makes it tough to get
Yeah. Yeah.
that at-large bid here out of this conference.
Yeah. Um, got another question for you. That's probably for higher pay grades. So we started talking about this idea of extending the season
Hmm.
on the front end and the back end, but well, I was saying the front end, by a week. So you get an extra week of preseason before your first game. Turns out that there's some folks who are working on it, basically mimicking college football or Division three football. So you start a week earlier and then you finish a week later, and the tournament everything gets pushed out,
Yeah.
kind of, and mimics the calendar for the Division three. And I always just so with the caveat that like NESCAC operates completely differently. So I'm not including those guys, and
Yeah.
there's probably others I just don't know about. Um, you have any thoughts on that? Would that be something you would welcome?
Yeah. I
Having the
mean, I
extra
think
time in preseason?
I'm always going to take more time.
Mm-hmm.
I think any coach would tell you that they would take more time with their team to get them prepared and having some more time to play all of these games.
Mm-hmm.
There's I think every team goes through a period of time where they got injuries, they got bumps and bruises and tired legs, and they go into at least a game or two every single year where they're just going, man, we're just gonna have to hold on to this one. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so anytime you get more time, I'm all for it. I think that's if we're truly trying to up the level of play at Division three. I think
Mm-hmm.
you've seen in the past decade the quality of players increase dramatically.
Oh yeah.
And now I think it's almost as coaches sometimes we feel handcuffed where
Mm-hmm.
we have a certain amount of time to get these games in, and do we want to just put them back to back to max out the number of games we get, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe put our guys at a deficit when it comes to the physical battles if you don't have the proper depth, or do you maybe space those out a little bit more and not max out the number of games possible for your kids to play in their career,
Mm-hmm.
but they go into those games a little bit fresher.
Yeah.
So extending that time period, I think, allows that balance to be there as a coach. I know guys on both spectrums, guys that say, hey, we are going to play the maximum amount of games every single year
Yeah.
because our guys deserve that opportunity. And then there are
Yeah.
guys that say, well, I want my guys to be at their tip-top shape when we do go into a game, so they play a few less.
Yeah.
So I think that if you open that up, obviously you're getting a whole nother can of worms with logistics and finances and
Mm.
who
Yeah,
pays
yeah, yeah.
that bill and
That's
all
pay
that. But
grade stuff, man. Pay
yeah,
grade stuff.
those are the problems for people that are a lot smarter than I am. If you're going to give me more days to work with my guys, and
Yeah,
I think most importantly, the guys would love that.
yeah,
I think that's the biggest adjustment for kids coming in from club
mm,
soccer, where you are just year round, continuous,
yeah,
go, 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 go.
yeah,
And then you get into college and you realize at the Division three level, you have some time off.
yeah,
We have guys out here on a regular basis, at open fields and doing
mm,
things with the ball to get their workouts in and work on their touch.
mm,
Whether it's futsal, like we got a tech ball table.
mm,
They crave those additional hours, those additional days
yeah,
to do things because they love it.
yeah.
So if we're doing right by them, I'm all for it.
Okay, let's talk about the season.
All right.
All right, so the year before you came, you were 5-8-2, and then in your first year, like I mentioned, you were 9-6-4.
Hmm.
I mean, do you think it was a case of like a turnaround, or do you think it was just a maturity level? You mentioned just sort of desire and hunger by the guys on the team to do better because they were embarrassed. I mean, what would you attribute that going from 5 to 9 and
Yeah, I think for me, I think we did a good job this year of getting everybody understanding what the goal was. To call it a turnaround, I think, is a little bit of an insult to the guys that were already here.
mm-hmm.
Um, there's no secret that when I walked in the door here, we had talent still. It was
Yeah.
more of an anomaly that they had a bad year than it was anything else. Um, but I do think that we brought in a lot of young talent, a lot of young bodies that push those guys maybe to some different levels of discomfort. I'll say
Hmm.
that
You need that.
during
Like, I hate to
exactly,
say it, you need it. I
yeah.
always say you need that level of discomfort day in and day out. But
And
anyhow,
I
go
th-
ahead.
and I think it worked really well. Like any other team, we weathered some injuries where we had I think four or three of our six seniors at one point or another were out for a couple games in a row, and so we needed those younger guys to step up. Now, at the end of the day, we got into that semifinal at the end of the year, and our seniors were right there leading the way for us. Um, One of our fifth years had a couple assists in the postseason that really played well for us. So
Hmm.
we couldn't do it without those seniors. Don't get me wrong; they played a massive part. But I think it was just getting back to the basics and bringing in those bodies and that additional talent to push guys on a regular basis, so that
Hmm.
the training environment, that competitiveness, that high energy, can mirror more closely what it looks like in a game environment. And I
Yeah.
think that that's what resulted in more wins throughout the years. Again, just a higher quantity of talent,
Hmm.
um, not to say anything negative about the guys that were already here. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
a big piece of that.
Yeah.
But you always need more. Division III soccer, as we just talked about,
Yeah.
comes at you so fast
Hmm.
that to be able to have some guys to rotate in is great. We only had one kid on the team start every single game this year.
Yeah.
So being able to use that talent and that depth to just give guys breaks so that by the end of the season they feel better,
Yeah.
I think that had a big, big reason, or that was a big piece of the reason we had more wins this year.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think you need guys. You need to be able to comfortably be like, I got 25 guys who can that I know I could go to and put them on the field, and they know what they have to do. They know, they might be super young and they might make young mistakes, right? But I
Hmm.
know that I can count on them to plug a hole if I need to plug a hole, especially like you said, injuries and whatnot to key guys.
Yeah.
And over a season, the way it's built now, there is a benefit to having guys just sort of, you're sort of done for today. Like why don't you just
Hmm.
rest, right? Because again, you make it to postseason like you guys did into the tournament, into the Heartland tournament. Like that's valuable when you have guys who are rested and recovered, and you need a bench for that.
And I
Um,
think I've heard a couple different coaches say sometimes you got to protect players from themselves.
yeah. Oh yeah,
That
I
guy,
was the
that
case
guy
in
that
point.
is
Yeah.
65, 70% and is just,
Hmm.
but he's a grinder and he wants to go get the
Yeah.
job done.
Yeah.
We had a few of those this year that
Yeah.
um, I had to sit him down and say, hey, just trust me here. We
Yeah.
still love you. This is not a punishment. This is
Yeah.
me wanting to put your best interest and longevity in the game
Yeah.
ahead of today.
Yeah.
And again, I would have hated that as a player. I
Oh
never
my
wanted
God.
to come off the field, so I don't expect them to like it all the time. But
Yeah.
hopefully, as I continue to get more years under my belt, that
Yeah.
track record proves itself. That we have guys that come out of here and finish their career in good physical health.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a kid that early in the season sat a couple games when we were just kind of being precautious and making sure that he was going to be okay.
Hmm.
And then we got to the last, I don't know, I'll say 5 minutes of that semifinal game, and he was kind of gimping around. And my assistant just said his name real quick, and he gave us the hand wave of "There's no way you're taking me off the field right
But
now."
that's what you want, right? Like that's you want to
Exactly.
get him to that spot because if you didn't sit him, who knows? He doesn't
Yep.
even get to play that game, right? You just
Exactly.
never
And
know.
that's if they're willing to take some minutes off early in the year, I am by all means willing to give them that leash at the end of the year to,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this case, it was this guy's last game. I'm not
Yeah.
going to take him off the field at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it seemed like you lost to Hanover, right?
mhm,
Hanover.
mhm.
You lost to them 2-1, but you lost to them during the regular season 4-1, if I recall.
Yep.
So not having watched the game, I'll just assume that man, it was a lot tighter and probably there were some opportunities. And yeah, I could see a guy, that it's not 5 minutes left. The game's not lost yet, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, it was, I think we made some different tactical decisions going into that second game.
hmm
But our guys, I think they knew in game one we did not play very well.
right.
We were pretty flat. We were on a, I don't know, 5, 6 game win streak at the time, and
hmm
I think we were feeling pretty good about ourselves, and kind of forgot the basics of how we prepare and execute.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, the postseason game was a close one.
Yeah.
We had, I think, a corner kick and a couple long throws or something like that in the last minute of the game where
hmm
I really felt like we were going to, knock one in and tie it up. But
Yeah.
uh, ball doesn't bounce your way some days. But no, I think
No.
that the progress in mentality and in execution from game one to game two against them was really big for us this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said it before. Soccer can be a very humbling game. When you think you're all that, and you're thinking, "Hey, look, we won 5 in a row," it teaches you a lesson in a way that you don't want to be taught.
Yes, it
Like
does. Yes, it
just
does.
the way it is. It's the weirdest thing. Um, so so based on this past season, I'm going to say too, like it looks to me like you're on the younger side of a roster, right? You only have, I think I counted 6, maybe 7, I can't recall, seniors or
Mhm.
graduate students, and I don't know the returnees and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
um, what are what is the one thing or the couple things that you're already in your mind, you knew like this is something that we have to improve if we're going to keep making progress, up the ladder
You talking about going into next year?
into next year? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
I think the two big things for me are consistency and leadership. Consistency just in when you have a young team, you expect those rookie mistakes or those young mistakes, and um, I've told the guys I'm okay all of the time if those are physical.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're mental mistakes, if we're not really prepared for training mentally, or we're not prepared for a game, or present and engaged, those are
Yeah.
the things we have to get better at.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it was ever a complete disengagement from an entire group of guys, but
Right.
if 4 of them over here are a little bit disengaged today, and then tomorrow it's a different 4, I think it's
Yeah. Yeah.
that consistency in the training environment is one thing for me still that um, improved throughout the year, but still needs to hit another level. And then leadership,
Mm-hmm.
just because we lose so much, you nailed it. We have 6 seniors
Mm-hmm.
that 3 of them being fifth years that are now gone, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a big void to fill, especially when the majority of this team is still going to be sophomores and freshmen next year, with a
Yeah.
small group of juniors and seniors. So,
Yeah.
to me, I think it's really working with the guys we have here and defining what those expectations truly are for our leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be a captain all the time. I think that there's always, on good teams, there are always those guys that may not wear the armband, but have a voice in the locker room. And when they say
Mm-hmm.
something,
Yeah.
people listen.
Yeah.
So those are the things I think, just with a young group, that if we can nail those down and
Mm-hmm.
improve those over the course of the spring and
Mm-hmm.
again into the fall, uh, that's really what's going to dictate, I think, how much success we have going forward. I feel good about the level of talent. I feel good about what our recruiting class might look like here once we wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
But again, to me, it's the expectations, the leadership, and coming into work every single day. You look at the top
Yeah.
teams in the nation; they don't take days off. They don't have
No.
these
Right.
lulls where they just don't do anything at practice, or walk out
Mm-hmm.
onto a field not ready. So that is, again, consistency and leadership to me.
Yeah. So I thought was the coolest thing, to your point, like guys don't take off. Like you don't take off even though the season's over. I spoke to Joe Mangachos of Western Connecticut, yeah, last week. And while I was doing the interview, they're a week. They're not even a week. They were like 5 days or something out of their season over, they got snubbed in the tournament. They went 20-2, I think it was. They didn't get a bid. And we were talking, going back and forth, and the door opens up behind him, and two of his guys snuck in and grabbed a bag of balls.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a difference maker to me. 5 days out,
Hmm.
there are guys who are taking a rest, and there are guys who are not, and the guys who are not are the ones who make the difference. So,
Yeah.
hey, so what does your recruiting class look like? Like, are you looking for specifics? I mean, obviously you're looking for guys to complement your what you have now, but are you basically searching for something in particular, or?
I still think we are young enough that we talked about the discomfort in training sessions
Mm-hmm.
and just the normal training environment. We're looking for guys
Yep.
all over that can come in and push us.
Mm,
We
yeah.
we have some good talent returning. We have some young guys that I expect to take some bigger roles next year. But
Mm-hmm.
we still very much need a good class of people and a good class of players to come in and
Mm,
continue to push and drive that competitive
yeah.
gene in our program.
Yeah.
We lose a lot of attacking players from this year's
Mm,
team, so we're looking to add a lot of
mm,
those types of guys. But um,
mm,
there's not really too many positions on the field that I wouldn't take a really quality kid right now. We've
yeah.
all been through this and seen how just because you have a great freshman year, sophomore year doesn't mean that
Yeah.
that correlates
Doesn't
to a
mean it.
great 4 year career.
Yeah.
And so to me, we're still an unproven quantity with some of the younger guys
Mm,
that hey, you checked the box once, you did what you needed to do.
mm,
Can you continue to do what you just said, which is
mm,
come in and put in the work? Are you
yeah.
willing to show up and whether it's coming out here and banging a ball around on the field or
Yeah.
going in and playing futsal or whatever it might be, uh,
Yeah.
there's still a large majority of our team that has not proven themselves in an
Mm-hmm.
off season just because they haven't been through it yet.
Yeah.
So
Very
we're
true.
going
That's a great point. That's a
um,
great point. The guys that you could, I don't want to say lose, right? That's not the right thing, but the guys who could be the quickest to disconnect are the freshmen because they have
yeah,
no experience in it, right? They have
hmm,
no understanding of like what the expectation now is. Like, hey,
yeah,
I can't tell you to go to the gym, but I'm watching you.
yeah,
I know who goes to the gym, right?
yeah,
Like silly stuff like that. And I know who comes in here and wants to watch film or wants to knock a ball or I know. So
yeah.
yeah,
And
and it's the freshmen, like I said.
those are the habits that we hope to instill, that we hope
Yeah.
they take advantage of. But again, for me, coming in halfway through the year last year, basically, got a chance to really affect the recruiting, but um,
Hmm.
didn't necessarily have as deep of relationships, I'll say, with those recruits as what I felt like I would have in a normal year. And that's
Yeah.
just the timing of it all. That's not
Yeah.
anything else. So I think as we move forward, the guys that want to have those good habits and want to work on those things,
Yeah.
whether it's just something as simple as, making sure we don't miss class or you're eating the right things or
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
taking care of your body, whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
You're
Um,
still an athlete. You're
yeah.
still an athlete even when the season's over, right? And you got to
Hmm.
treat yourself that way.
And I'll give the guys credit. I know that they've been out there doing some things and, I've
Hmm.
had to, help the guys get some balls out here on occasion the last couple weeks as we finished up the season. So I think they're hungry, and now it's
Hmm.
more about us as a coaching staff to educate them on how they can work hard and what they
Hmm.
can do to
Yeah.
continue to improve themselves.
Yeah. 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 I may have asked you this before, but well, maybe you know more now. But what is Transy's like? What's your recruiting footprint like? Like where do you go? And because again, Mount Union is Ohio, Pennsylvania, West
Right.
Virginia. I don't know
Yeah,
what.
we're pretty heavily Kentucky right now.
Uh,
Through Lexington, Northern Kentucky, and into Louisville. I believe we can reach up. We've got a couple kids out of the Ohio area, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati,
mm-hmm,
definitely. We've had a good contingency of Cup and Kings Hammer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's now Lexington Sporting Club instead of Lexington Football Club, Lou City.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, um, reaching down into Tennessee occasionally. And then
Mm-hmm.
to me, I think our academics are good enough to really open up that scope a little bit
Yeah.
wider.
Yeah.
We're in conversations with guys from, I'll say, 6 or 7 other states that haven't been mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to sort out exactly kind of where they fit into everything. Is it,
Yeah.
are they ready for this commitment? Are they ready for what we're looking to do? And if
Mm-hmm.
the answer is yes, then great, let's bring them in. I am a firm believer that you want to have people from different backgrounds and different areas and different experiences, because I just think that's what one college is all about, and then college
Mm-hmm.
athletics can take that to a different level. So for me, it's hopefully, we're in a great spot. Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, you got some really good
Mm-hmm.
soccer in that region.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say that you're not fishing in a dry pond.
No.
Like you got a lot of possibility there.
Hmm.
Um, all right, Coach. I'm going to give you back the rest of your day. Really do appreciate you taking the time. It's wonderful talking to
Yeah,
you. Send me the link for your store when you open it up.
will do.
I got to get some transy gear of some sort. Maybe not the hat. The hats are overwhelming right now.
All right,
So
we can find
I have
something
to.
else for you. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure. I look good in any soccer gear. That's just
There you
me.
go.
That's
There you
just,
go.
that's just me.
Yeah.
But thank you very much. Do
Yep.
appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.